Some folks seem pretty upset over this Connecticut Sun sale situation. I can't say I am one of those folks that is pissed off about it, but here is some of the reaction that you've seen. Senator Richard Blumenthal, WNBA put a full court press on blocking the Sun from staying in Connecticut. Deeply harmful to fans that live and breathe basketball. DOJ should investigate and stop such anti-competitive interference. Look, let's unpack this for a second, right? So the Connecticut Sun, we're going to be sold to one of the owners of the Celtics, right? Like that was
DeWanna Bonner didn't just see the news, she felt the betrayal. The Connecticut Sun, a team she poured her soul into, was being sold off like a used car, and the league just slammed the door on the one thing that could have saved them. It wasn't just about a change in ownership, it was a blatant rejection of the momentum building around stars like Caitlin Clark. The veteran star watched as the WNBA front office effectively sabotaged a massive deal that would have kept the team in the region. This wasn't a business move, it was a middle finger to the fans and the players who built this house from the ground up.
Let's unpack this for a second, right? So the Connecticut Sun, we're going to be sold to one of the owners of the Celtics, right? Like that was agreed to. And that I get. Like Boston, WNBA team, Boston sports fans, region remains the same, even if it's a different location. Like I understand, I guess, being pissed that didn't go down. As far as the Connecticut Sun themselves, I don't think that team had much juice relative to the rest of the league. Let's just be real about it. It was not a destination.
Imagine a record-breaking $325 million offer sitting on the table, ready to transform the franchise. One of the owners of the Boston Celtics was ready to step in and turn the Sun into a powerhouse in a major sports market. For DeWanna Bonner and her teammates, this represented a leap into the big leagues of visibility and resources, but instead of a celebration, the league office issued a cold, hard no. They claimed the move was an attempt to skip the line, ignoring the fact that the regional fan base was already there, starving for a modern experience that matches the talent on the floor.
It was not a destination. It was not one of those teams, if you're another team, you get excited about playing, you're circling on the calendar. And the facilities were not up to par. They're sharing courts for kids' birthday parties and stuff like that. And in this new CBA, that's part of it, is making sure all the facilities are up to par. So just keeping it status quo, I get why that wasn't the case. Just even moving, somewhere in Connecticut, Hartford was another suggestion. But with the ownership change could have been the upgrades. So that's one argument.
The reality behind the scenes in Connecticut has been nothing short of embarrassing for a professional organization in 2024. While the rest of the league is leveling up, the Connecticut Sun are still sharing practice courts with kids' birthday parties. It is hard to sell a world-class future to the next generation of stars when you have to wait for a toddler to finish their cake before you can run drills. This lack of basic professional standards is exactly why the veteran core is so livid. They see the Caitlin Clark effect bringing millions of eyes to the game, yet, they are stuck in a facility that feels like a local YMCA.
Putting in that bid. But you can see the other side of it as well if you're, I think, fairly looking at it. The WNBA's case would be that they tried to skip the line, more or less. That's essentially what they said. Sun ownership, however, initially reached a deal last summer to sell the team for a record $325 million, which, by the way, needs to be appreciated. I think that the price here is $300 million to go to Houston, to relaunch the Comets, which I haven't even mentioned up until this point. And there's some history there, of course. But just the fact that the Connecticut Sun are selling for upward.
Instead of the Boston Dream, the league is pivoting toward a $300 million relaunch of the Houston Comets. It is a move that feels more like rewarding the old boys club of NBA ownership than following the actual growth of the game. The Fertitta family is getting the nod, and while Houston has a legendary history, it feels like a slap in the face to the Connecticut Sun loyalists. For players like DeWanna Bonner, seeing the team's future auctioned off to a city that hasn't had a team in years, while their current market is left to rot, is a bitter pill to swallow. It defies all logic in this new era.
Which I haven't even mentioned up until this point. And there's some history there, of course. But just the fact that the Connecticut Sun are selling for upwards of $300 million is one of the surest signs of growth of the league that there's been, right? Like, I think they might have been bought for $10 million or something along those lines. That's an explosive growth. And it's one of the arguments I made going into the CBA as to how you can say, where the trajectory of the WNBA is headed beyond just simple revenue, net revenue, game in, game out.
Even the political heavyweights are stepping into the ring, because the situation has become that toxic. Senator Richard Blumenthal didn't hold back, calling for a full-court press to block the Connecticut Sun from being ripped away from Connecticut fans. He even suggested that the United States Department of Justice should investigate the WNBA for anti-competitive interference. When you have United States senators threatening legal action over a basketball team's relocation, you know the bridge isn't just burnt, it is nuked. This isn't just about sports anymore, it is about a league office that seems determined to control everything.
Teams that have put bids in, that have gotten rewarded for doing so. WNBA effectively blocked the deal from progressing, holding firm that relocation decisions are made by the WNBA Board of Governors and not by individual teams, and that cities have already gone through the expansion process, which included Houston. Those cities have priority over Boston. And we know we're getting Cleveland. We know we're getting Philadelphia. Obviously, the tempo, Toronto and Portland are entering this year, and now you're going back to Houston. Now the cynic could say it's the Fertitta family, right? And the NBA rewarding one of its own because
the WNBA's official stance is that everyone has to play by the rules of the expansion process. They argued that Boston hadn't gone through the proper channels, while cities like Houston, Toronto, and Portland had already done the legwork. But for the players, this feels like a convenient excuse to stop a super team environment from forming in a major market like Boston. They are essentially telling the Connecticut Sun that their value doesn't matter if it doesn't fit the league's rigid, slow-moving roadmap. It is a rejection of the now, in favor of a maybe later that might never actually benefit the roster.
Priority over Boston. And we know we're getting Cleveland. We know we're getting Philadelphia. Obviously, the tempo, Toronto and Portland are entering this year. And now you're going back to Houston. Now the cynic could say it's the Fertitta family, right? And the NBA rewarding one of its own because of the Houston Rockets connection. The Sun will play one more season in Connecticut before relocating in 2027. So I sit on the side of, I understand why the Sun are being moved. I understand why this is happening.
To understand the fury, you have to look at the numbers, which are absolutely staggering. The Connecticut Sun were bought for what now seems like pocket change, maybe $10 million back in the day. Now they are being valued at over $30 million. This explosive growth is the direct result of the sweat equity from veterans who played through the lean years. Now that the Caitlin Clark era has arrived, and the money is pouring in, the WNBA is gatekeeping who gets to profit from it. The players see the valuation skyrocketing, but they are being told they can't have the ownership they want.
Connecticut before relocating in 2027. So I sit on the side of, I understand why the Sun are being moved. I understand why this is happening. I like the idea personally of a team in Boston more than a team in Houston, but the moral of the story is the demand. And you had teams that have put in for these bids, like Houston, and they're getting rewarded, and other teams wanting to get in on the WNBA business. And ultimately, I think that's
this wholesale controversy is happening right in the shadow of the upcoming collective bargaining agreement negotiations. The players are looking for a piece of the pie, and more importantly, a say in how their franchises are managed. When the WNBA blocks a sale to a high-profile owner like those in Boston, it sends a clear message: the players' preferences are secondary to the Board of Governors' control. DeWanna Bonner and other veterans know that this decision sets a dangerous precedent for the future of free agency. If the league can control where a team goes, player autonomy is a myth. There is a narrative floating around that the Connecticut Sun simply didn't have enough juice to stay relevant. Critics are saying the team wasn't a destination, that other players didn't circle them on the calendar. This kind of talk is exactly what fuels the fire for a competitor like Bonner. She has spent her career making the Sun a perennial contender, yet the league treats the franchise like a placeholder. Rejecting the Boston deal was the ultimate confirmation that the WNBA doesn't see the Sun as a premier brand. Despite their consistent success and the massive interest from real investors, the clock is officially ticking, with a deadline that feels like a slow-motion car crash. The Sun will play just one more season in Connecticut before the planned relocation in 2027. Imagine being a player or a fan, knowing that your team has an expiration date. It creates a lame duck environment, where every home game is overshadowed by the looming move to Houston. This decision doesn't just hurt the bottom line, it kills the culture of the team. The league is essentially telling the fans in Uncasville that their loyalty is being traded for a shiny new market that hasn't proven it can show up. The accusation of anti-competitive interference is a heavy one, and it is sticking to the WNBA leadership like glue. By blocking the sale to the Celtics-linked group, the league isn't just managing expansion, they are picking winners and losers based on internal politics. This moves the goalposts for everyone involved. If a legitimate buyer with deep pockets and a proven track record in professional sports can be turned away, what does that say about the league's stability? It suggests that the growth we are seeing is being micromanaged to the point of stifling actual market potential. Everyone knows that Caitlin Clark has changed the math for the WNBA, but not everyone is happy with how that math is being applied. The surge in ratings and ticket sales should be lifting all boats, but instead, it's creating a divide. The league wants to use this momentum to launch new markets like Golden State and Toronto, but they are doing it by sacrificing established franchises. DeWanna Bonner and the Sun are the collateral damage of a league that is so obsessed with its new image that it is willing to throw away its foundation. They are rejecting the people who kept the lights on. For years, Connecticut has fought against the small market stigma, proving they could compete with the giants of the league. They built a winning tradition in a casino arena, often outdrawing teams in much larger cities. But the league's rejection of the Boston move shows they still view the Sun through a narrow lens. They don't see a regional powerhouse, they see a problem that needs to be moved to a more traditional sports hub like Houston. This refusal to acknowledge the Sun's unique success is a slap in the face to every player who chose to stay and build something special. The move to Houston is being viewed by many as a favor to the Houston Rockets owner, Tillman Fertitta. This brings up the uncomfortable reality of the WNBA's tether to the NBA's hierarchy. While the league claims to be independent and growing, decisions like this suggest they are still operating as a subsidiary that prioritizes NBA relationships over WNBA market health. For the players, it feels like they are being moved around a chessboard to satisfy billionaire owners rather than to grow the game where the fans are. There is a cruel irony in the fact that the Sun are being valued at a record $325 million, while being told their current home isn't good enough. If the franchise is worth that much, it is because of the players and the local support. Yet, that very value is being used as a justification to sell them off to the highest bidder in a different state. It is the ultimate, thanks for your service, now get out, move. The players created the value, but they are the ones being uprooted and forced to deal with the chaos of a relocation they never wanted to happen. The league's obsession with the expansion queue is starting to look like a gatekeeping mechanism. They are letting cities like Cleveland and Philadelphia enter the conversation, and they have already locked in Toronto and Portland. But why does a new city get priority over a proven winner that just needs a better arena and a more committed owner? By forcing the Sun to wait or move to Houston, the WNBA is effectively pausing the progress of a team that is ready to win right now. It is a strategic mistake that ignores the competitive window of stars who don't have years to wait for a process. you cannot talk about this sale without talking about the fans who live and breathe basketball in Connecticut. These aren't just casual observers, they are some of the most dedicated supporters in the world. They showed up when the league was struggling, and now that it's thriving, they are being told their team is being taken away because a billionaire in Houston wants a new toy. This rejection of the local community is a PR nightmare that the league seems to be ignoring. They are trading loyal fans for a theoretical market in Houston that might not even show up for the games. Bringing back the Houston Comets name carries a lot of weight, but you can't build a future solely on nostalgia. The original Comets were a dynasty, but the league has changed drastically since they folded. Trying to recapture that magic by killing a current contender like the Sun is a desperate move. It shows a lack of confidence in the league's ability to create new legacies. Instead of letting the Sun grow into their own in Boston, they are trying to resurrect a ghost in Houston. And the players are the ones who have to live with the consequences of this identity crisis. The WNBA Board of Governors is the ultimate shadow government in this scenario. They hold the power to veto any sale, and they use that power to protect their own interests rather than the health of the Sun franchise. By holding firm that relocation decisions are made by them, and not individual owners, they have effectively stripped teams of their agency. This level of corporate control is exactly what high-profile players are starting to rebel against. It makes the league feel less like a competitive sports organization, and more like a strictly managed franchise system for the elites. Part of the justification for the move is the new CBA's requirement for better facilities. The league is mandating that all teams have up-to-par practice courts and arenas, but instead of helping the Sun upgrade their situation in Connecticut or move to nearby Boston, they are using the lack of facilities as an excuse to ship them out. It's a classic trap scenario. They set standards that are impossible to meet in the current environment, and then use the failure to meet those standards as a reason to force a sale. The players see right through this tactic, and it is creating resentment. If the Sun didn't have juice before, this controversy has certainly given them plenty now, but for all the wrong reasons. The team is now the face of the league's internal struggle between growth and control. Every time DeWanna Bonner steps on the court, she is playing for a franchise that has been told it doesn't belong. That kind of chip on the shoulder can be powerful, but it's also exhausting. The players are being forced to be activists for their own survival while trying to compete at the highest level. It is a burden that the league's superstars shouldn't have to carry right now. The idea that Boston was skipping the line is a total fallacy when you consider the urgent need for professional-grade environments. If an owner is willing to pay a record price and provide a world-class venue, why should they wait? The WNBA is prioritizing a slow, bureaucratic expansion process over the immediate health of its teams. This wait your turn mentality is the exact opposite of the fast-paced growth the Caitlin Clark era demands. By the time the league finally allows a team in Boston, the momentum might be gone, and the current stars who could have headlined it will be gone too. Ultimately, the Connecticut Sun sale isn't just a business transaction, it is a crossroads for the entire WNBA. It reveals a league that is struggling to balance its corporate structure with the explosive, player-driven growth that is currently defining the sport. DeWanna Bonner's fury is a symptom of a much larger problem, a disconnect between the people who play the game and the people who run the business. As the league moves toward 2027, they must realize that you can't build an empire by rejecting the foundations that made you successful. The future is bright, but only if they